Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Exploring Avatar. This time, actually called Exploring Avatar the Way of Water, because this is our review, spoiler filled review, and discussion live of Avatar the Way of Water. Finally, here. I hope everybody has had a chance to see it. This will be spoiler filled. But of course, I'm not alone. As always, I have Drew here with me. So, Drew, how are you?
Doing good, Jerry. Just want to say hi to you and everybody in the chat. And again, spoilers. We're going to have lots of spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler filled, everybody. So if you haven't seen the movie, come watch the replay later on after you have, because obviously we don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't experienced it. But for everybody that stays, let's have a good time and like discuss and dissect this movie. And yeah, just quickly, just want to say hi to Afton Child, anime lover fan, Jaden, anybody who's in the chat, AB James. Yeah, just hi to everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we will begin. And obviously, right off the bat, we're going to have to start with our overall thoughts. So I'll let you go first, Drew. What are your just very simple kind of overall thoughts on the movie? How did it leave you feeling?
Overall thoughts, and I can actually do this, I think, without even any spoilers. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it mainly focused on the Sully family, something we already knew it was going to, but just focused on them. It stayed small. We never had anything like it never got to a huge climax like the first movie. There was never a huge battle. Yeah, there was a battle, and it wasn't exactly tiny, but it was just a small group of RDA faction versus the Sully family and the Metkayina clan. Nothing like what we saw in the first one. But I really enjoyed that. I'm glad that it wasn't just a huge Navi versus RDA the entire time. It was just a small group of Navi versus a small group of RDA. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the family aspect. I liked seeing the very beginning where we got to see Jake and Neytiri raising their kids. Then we got to see why they left and went through that whole process. Then just following them. To be such a long movie, I wasn't ever bored, which, not that I thought I'd be bored, but sometimes when you're sitting in a theater and it's dark for 3 hours, it's easy to just kind of catch a quick nap. But I was totally engaged the entire time, even through what would probably be the slower parts where they were kind of getting adjusted and trying to adapt to the Metkayina. Like, I was just still like had my complete attention. I enjoyed watching everything. I've only seen it the one time, but at this point, I can't wait to go back and watch it again. So yeah, overall, loved it. It was everything I was hoping for, and then some. And so, what about you, Jerry? What are your thoughts?
Oh man, right off the bat, I have to say, completely happy with it. It was worth the wait, and I think what you said rings true. Honestly, like it was the perfect, in a way, like reintroduction. There was I mean, we'll go more in depth later on. A lot of like homages, similarities to the first movie. It was a great way to get back into Pandora, into the story of these characters, and all the new characters, the extended family that we now get to go on this journey with, and these new clans we get to meet. Basically, a new RDA in a way, new objectives, new equipment, and like you said, it wasn't this huge war and battle at the end of like all the RDA forces versus the Navi, which is kind of what we probably would have maybe assumed, right off the bat going into it. But you're right. Like I love that it was smaller scale. It was still huge in tension. Action was still, the set pieces were still great, but just the overall scale. I love that it was kind of like zoomed in and more focused. And then as we progress now, knowing that we have these other sequels to go into, I believe the scale and the scope would just keep getting bigger and bigger. So I love that it's starting like that with at least these four sequels, you know. So I mean, I was completely, yeah, completely left the theater satisfied. Honestly, almost no complaints. And we'll go into every other little detail in a little bit. But yeah, overall thoughts were I'm super happy. It's kind of one of those things we're kind of biased, you know. We're Avatar fans. Everybody else here that's watching is. So I already knew there wasn't like that I was gonna dislike it, but I think it even, you know, exceeded my expectations for even as focused and smaller scale of a story that it kind of ended up being. You know, it had a huge heart, huge tension, huge emotion. So yeah, man, really excited to see it again. You know, these upcoming days again. So yeah, super happy. Those are my overall thoughts.
So, since we're sharing our overall thoughts, was there anything that I'm not going to say you disliked, but maybe weren't totally happy with? Was there anything you would have liked to have seen done differently? Let's put it that way.
See, I don't know if I would necessarily say I wish they would have done different. There were like, of course, maybe aspects that I wish we would have explored. But with the nature of knowing that there's the further sequels and you can't put everything into one, because obviously, you know, we would want the 5 hour cut that would give us even more time with the, you know, certain characters or this and that. The only thing that really, and it's only a technical aspect, so it's not even really necessarily the film. For me, sometimes, occasionally, the 48 frames per second was kind of like a little jarring sometimes, but for the most part when it worked, it like really worked and it was like super immersive. But other than that, story wise, um I don't think I would say that I would want anything differently done. But it's just other aspects that, you know, obviously we want more to explore more of the story of certain characters, you know, certain arcs, but we're gonna get there. So I'm just gonna trust the process at the moment. And yeah, but for what it was really good. How about yourself though? Any reservations or anything you would have liked a little differently?
Probably the only parts that I can't even say I disliked them, but that were kind of I found to be a bit odd choice was how often they would do something that referenced the first movie almost exactly. And we both talked about this a little bit off air. I mean, there's countless things, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And not all of them were bad, but I was just surprised at how often they would recreate something that happened in Avatar 1 in Avatar 2. And after I saw that 3 or 4 times, I was just kind of like, really? But
Yeah.
I wasn't upset with it, especially due to the length of time that went from Avatar 1 to Avatar 2. Made it a little bit more understandable, kind of ties the films together. I wouldn't want to see that continue on going forward, and I don't think we probably will. So it didn't really bother me too much, but it was kind of odd to see some of the exact same things almost happening, yet with different characters over and over. So that was the only
Exactly.
thing that I really took away as, I guess you could say, a negative or a critique that I had. But it didn't stop me from enjoying the film in any way.
Exactly. Like you said, I think what it was taken into consideration maybe the big gap that there was, the time gap in between, you know, getting the first and the second film. But it would be even more apparent if I'm thinking about it, like if you really did like a marathon of these two movies back to back, you would really notice it. You know what I mean? So
For sure, yeah.
like you said, I wouldn't really like it to be a trend that continues where like you keep having scenes, or even like it could be down to just like a certain shot that's kind of like a recreation of a shot from the first movie, or even like a little scene. So for example, um you know, it could be Quaritch going up there to tame his Ikran, and literally the shot of the Ikran like basically like hissing at him and everything is like one to one the shot of the Jake's Banshee doing that, and then him hissing back, and really apparent like almost a whole scene was the whole Akula scene where like the Loak versus the not versus but trying to escape the Akula attack. It was basically Jake in the Thanator chase, even down to him Loak hiding in the coral. It was kind of like Jake hiding into the roots of that tree, and then the Thanator can't bite him. So it was very similar. But like you said, it's most likely because of the gap, and it kind of brings you back to the first movie a bit. But yeah, maybe not too much of that going forward. But other than that, those are like, really nitpicky. Other than that, I think we both left the theater like super happy, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for one, I was looking, no movie's perfect, right? So I was looking for things that, like, hey, if I could see it done differently, this is what I would choose. And so, really, a non-issue for me. But some of them definitely did kind of make me roll my eyes a little bit. But again, didn't affect me liking the movie at all.
Yeah. Well, that'll bring us straight into our first topic itself. So that'll be us discussing the CGI. So our opinions on, the CGI, the basically all the mocap and everything. And I'll start this one off. I literally think they just created a new benchmark for photorealistic CGI. We just had the remaster of the first one come out just a few months ago, and even seeing that again in theaters. I mean, I already knew every time I watch it throughout the years that it holds up. It looks better than most movies today, but that one really affirmed it, especially seeing it again in the complete experience, 3D, seeing it in the theater again. But really just a few months later, now going into this, you see like, wow, like really a lot of movies recently throughout the past decade, they weren't really trying to raise the bar. They were just kind of you can now tell like, they were just kind of there. Like they would just just meet it. But with James, he always wants to see like to push it, keep pushing. So, and I love that. And obviously not every filmmaker can be that, because then James Cameron himself wouldn't be so special if everybody was like a James Cameron. So it makes it special. But yeah, they looked just so real. Like I felt you were really looking at, like real Navi there in front of you, like their skin, everything, the water, just knowing that most of the time you're watching this movie and it looks like the best thing you've ever seen. But literally at the end of the day, you're kind of just looking at ones and zeros. Like, a lot of what you're seeing looks completely real or hyper real, but none of it is. It's just an incredible feat. But what did you think of all the CGI, Drew?
Well, and like you mentioned, going back and talking about the remaster, I thought the remaster while I was watching it looked so good. Like, I was so happy with it. And then we get to the very end, and we get a little teaser. And so, that was my first taste of seeing how good Avatar 2 was going to look. And I'm glad I got to see it like moments after seeing the Avatar remaster, because it gave me a taste of just how much better it was. And yeah, seeing the movie in its entirety just continued that thought for me. Like, so good. I mean, there was some parts that, like, I want to say actually towards the very end, Spider was going up on some rocks, but it just, like, I mean, it literally looked like everything looked completely real in that shot to me. And I mean, I can name a whole bunch of others that are the exact same way, but it was really mind blowing. Like, I wasn't sitting there thinking about it being CGI really ever. And to me, that just tells me how good it was. And, mixed with just the storytelling, I mean, man, it was so good. So yeah, I'm completely happy with the CGI. I'm glad that they pushed the bar raised it, and now other movies will try to reach that. I'm sure it'll take them some time, but it's just good for the entertainment industry as a whole. Because I mean, they're gonna see the Avatar looks that good, and it might take them some time, but they'll work towards that and eventually get there.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes hand in hand with our next topic, the 3D. Um, what'd you think of the 3D working hand in hand with that, amazing CGI or just the 3D effect in general for this movie?
Honestly, the biggest compliment I could give the 3D for this movie was that I almost didn't even notice it. And I don't mean that like in a negative way, but like it was so good and just worked so flawlessly that I just I didn't even really think about it. To me, it was just that good. Not that Avatar 1 was gimmicky in any way, because I absolutely loved the 3D in Avatar 1, but this just felt more natural, and I loved it. I thought it was perfect.
Exactly. And uh, pretty much the same sentiments. Like, I think they both worked perfectly together. The fact that this was, at that level of CGI. And then the 3D, I think what helped it the most in this one, which makes it even more breathtaking than the last movie, because they're both the best examples of 3D in a movie, in my opinion, of just like how you can use 3D to not really be gimmicky, but just like you said, like immerse you in it, where you really feel like you kind of forget that these technological aspects of it. You're just immersed in it. It's just an overall experience. But I think what really helped it in this one was going underwater, because I remember, I think it's the first time, the kids dive into the water, and this is one of those scenes that we got at the end of the remaster. But the first time you go down, and the movie has already been incredible with the 3D, but as soon as they go down there, it just goes to another level. It's amazing when it's under the water, and just everything, even like when the surface of the water is kind of like halfway through the screen, you really feel like you're right there, like your head is popping up. You know what I mean? Like when you're in the pool, like it really feels so immersive. It really feels like you're there. So yeah, the 3D. I've been a fan of 3D the entire time. I know for a lot of people, you know, they have fallen off, or it was because a lot of movies just didn't use it the right way. They were just being post converted. It wasn't really something the director initially had in mind. So all that kind of stuff soured people on the thought of 3D. But I've been a fan of it since I saw it used in the first movie. And man, I got like 3D TVs. I remember playing the Avatar game in 3D at that time. So I'm glad, and I really hope it kind of sparks some kind of resurgence. Like I said before in past streams, and to you personally, like I just want another 3D TV, man. Like I know we can get projectors that have it, but I just want a 3D TV. My last one broke, so I hope this kind of just gets one of the companies to maybe just add the feature again to one of their future TVs. But just selfishly, because I want to see these movies over and over again, the way they're meant to be seen with the 3D. So, but yeah, I loved it. I completely loved it.
You made a really good point, and I kind of forgot about this. When we first go underwater, it was actually a little bit jarring for me, not in a bad way, but it's like I like my body, it's like almost felt like I was underwater. It was odd, and
Yeah.
but I don't mean that in a negative way. It was just like that realistic to me. It was a cool experience for sure.
And now, all those technological aspects aside, how was the actual story? And I mean, I'll start right off the bat. I loved it. Like we kind of alluded to before, we mentioned it was maybe a little smaller scale than I had initially anticipated, but that I think became like its strength. Like we said, I think it's just gonna ramp up from here. But even at this scale that seemed in probably smaller, of course, than like even the previous movie, where it really did seem like a war of the RDA versus multiple clans of the Navi. Here was kind of, maybe you can call it a skirmish, more something like that. But in general, I love, the introduction of the family aspect, and I cared for so many more characters this time around. And really throughout the movie, even in the second act, where some people might think it's a little slower, I in that second act is where I become even more invested into all the different stories. The Loak story, the mystery with Kiri, Spider and Quaritch, Jake and Neytiri's, their plight as, like, parents now, as opposed to their, in the first movie. Everything just worked for me, and it didn't need to be this huge scale. So I really came out enjoying the movie from, honestly, beginning to end, and really nothing in the story that I didn't like, or that I would have changed or anything like that. Pretty much engaged me from beginning to end. Where this 3 hour and 12 minute movie, if you include the credits, it flew by. Like, by the time we were in Act 3, in my head I thought we were still in Act 2. Like, that's how it flew by to me, because I was enjoying just every aspect of it. So for me, it kind of flew by. The movie ended, and it felt like I only sat through like a 2 hour movie instead of a three. But how about you, man? How did you find the story?
I really loved it, and it's not because it was anything complicated or crazy new. I mean, it's a story about the Sully family, essentially. And, I went in with preconceived notions about, oh, I think I'll like, this child or this child or this child. But once the movie started, I just threw it all out the window and just let the movie, tell me about each child, and just kind of develop favorites from there. And I really, with the exception of Took, just because she didn't do a whole lot, and it's not a negative towards her. I mean, I
Yeah,
really just started becoming invested in every child. Like, I like things about every single one of them. And so, just as it went, like, I became more attached to every single one of them. I would say Loak probably was, if I had a favorite of the kids, would be mine, but I liked every single one of them. And so, I think that alone just goes to show the good storytelling to me. I became invested in the whole family because I went in, huge fan of Neytiri, huge fan of Jake, but like you mentioned, by the end, I was invested in caring about all of them. And that's not even to mention, the new clan that we met and the characters that we met, from that clan. I started really getting invested in them too. So, yeah, I love the story. Um, I love the scale being a little smaller this time, like we've mentioned a few times already. And especially that ending, man. Like, without going into detail, just the emotion, what all happened, like, it sucked me in. And definitely emotional. It definitely had my attention. At the end of a 3 hour movie, I could see anybody being bored or starting to be ready. All right, well, this has been a good movie. Well, let's get out of here. But I didn't feel that way at all, man. If it went on for another hour, I would have loved it. So yeah,
yeah,
story gets an A+ for me.
yeah. Same here. And that kind of gets us into going into specific characters and their character arcs. So obviously we'll start with, Jake and Neytiri, the parents this time around, as opposed where how we left them off the last time. Um I'll start this one. I really enjoyed this seeing him in this light, like the parent role. Uh we got we still have the first movie with their more adventurous side, and their younger versions over there. But I really could relate, now being a parent myself, to their their concerns and everything they went through in this movie. And they, especially Neytiri, man, I feel like she went through like so much in this movie. And honestly, she has gone through so much loss. Um, like, to focus on her right now for a little bit, you got to think about it. It's all this loss from the first movie we already knew, and just even more that gets added on this time, to where like two moments that, like, I really felt for her. Obviously, are like, we'll get into it a little bit. A certain character death, and then even something as simple as her bow breaking towards in the last act of the movie. Like, man, because what that represented. She even says it early on in the movie to Jake. So hers just kind of, she's just been losing and losing, and then especially the big one is one of the big ones is the crutch of this movie is having to leave the forest and leave her home, everything she's ever known, and now go to this whole new area. So it was like pretty much a lot of the movie we saw her being very emotional, but it was very like we understood why. It wasn't like it, so I really felt for her character, and I didn't really think she took a back seat. I know that I've heard that people think she took a back seat, but really when introducing so many so many of their own kids and even other characters like other characters in the clan, and now really it's like their kids that we're kind of we need to get invested in them. I don't really think, I didn't really notice it by the end of the movie. I didn't really have a feeling that she took more of a back seat. What, like, the moments that she had were still very powerful to me, and I felt she was still present throughout the whole movie. So I still felt her presence. I didn't really think that. And then Jake, man, like, I honestly love him even more by the end of this movie. He's now even more relatable with the whole aspect, like I said, of being a father, and his torment has been always knowing that they would return and just living with that torment, kind of how we've explored and when we've reviewed the High Ground comics and just all that. So it's been years in the same way. He basically hasn't been at peace either. So it's pretty much like they've been dealt like very bad hands, and but they've been just trying to make the best of it. It's all just about the family, for good or for worse. Like he says, the Sully family sticks together. But yeah, man, I thought he was badass, especially toward in the last act of the movie. And yeah, I love their journey. What did you think, Drew, about Jake and Neytiri in this movie?
Well, like most people, I mean, those are my two favorite characters from Avatar. And I went in loving both of them. I wouldn't care if they even had a family and all we did was watch them run around the forest for 3 hours. That would probably be entertaining to me. But yeah, seeing the characters grow, having a family, I gained even more respect for both characters. Like Jake as a father, just trying to hold everything together, trying to make all these super tough choices that didn't really feel like he could win, but at the same time he knew he had to protect his family, so he's trying to do what's best. And he's never been afraid to take chances and I think choose what's right, even though maybe no one else sees it at the time. So a lot of respect for Jake for doing that, taking his family on this trip to a whole nother clan. That was not a popular decision, but he thought that's what needed to be done, so he did it. And just mad respect, even more respect than ever for Jake. And then Neytiri just trusting in Jake, even though she disagreed. They still, they're a family. They stayed together. They stuck together and worked through it. And then for me, what stole the entire movie was Neytiri's reaction there at the very end of the movie. And that was some of the best acting that I'd seen in Avatar. So that, even though it was like a sad moment, it was also like a really badass moment. So, and happening at the very end of the movie, it just it left me super excited to see what's to come. So yeah, I left just with more appreciation for both characters.
Exactly. And then obviously now we start getting into some of their kids that they've had in this time in between the two movies, which the time was 15 years, right? There's a 15-year gap.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll get to let's start with the adopted daughter Kiri, and I'll let you go first on your thoughts on Kiri.
So Kiri is one of those I mentioned with the preconceived notions. I didn't know if I'd like her or not. Like I wasn't gonna make up my mind going into the movie that I didn't like her. But from what I had seen off the trailers and stuff, I kind of got the feeling that I wasn't really going to. But watching her in the movie, watching the story unfold, totally changed my mind on that. I'm still intrigued by her because even after watching this movie, there's still questions for sure. But I liked her a lot. She was a very interesting character. I like that connection that she still has with her mom. Watching the old video logs, just going in and seeing Grace's avatar body in the tank, the special skills that she has, really just the kindness that she shows to her fellow brothers and sisters, the way she interacts with plants, animals, and plus I'm still super intrigued by like who her father is, which, I don't think there's an actual person that's her father, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a character that really sucked me in, and instead of me disliking her, I ended up leaving the theater like really, really liking her.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, and it's crazy because I feel we still don't know. Like we even already saw the movie. I know we said it a lot throughout the promotional material that going into the movie, we still knew almost nothing. And really, at the end of the day, even after watching the movie, I feel we barely have scratched the surface on anything of Kiri. We still are in the same mysteries, going into the movie. So obviously that the whole playing up like who's her father, which I also agree. I don't think there is. I think this is more of a immaculate conception type of situation we have going on here. That obviously it seems like they'll probably dive into that as the movies progress, and then what that could mean. Because really, we've seen she just has that greater connection to everything, all living beings on Pandora, whether it's plants, whether it's the creatures, the animals. Um, but just to see where that even goes, her abilities, just her story is going to be fascinating, and it's just incredible because I'm excited for so many of these characters' stories. Like you were saying, by the end, I'm so invested. Yeah, maybe like took Tiri because she's so young, she really didn't factor in. But I'm sure that at some point in these sequels, she's also gonna have, a good character arc and a good story. So I'm not really so that with that one I'll withhold judgment until we see more of that character's particular story, just because she's so young in this one. But yeah, with all the other ones and especially Kiri, like really just fascinated to see where it goes. I honestly, the whole Sigourney Weaver playing her, it's kind of like early on. I just not that I forgot, but it won me over. Like I really did believe it was literally just like a teenage girl, So it wasn't jarring for me. Like you said, I love that she cared about her siblings so much. Especially you can see the special bond between Spider and Kiri, which we got hinted at during the high ground because they kind of feel they're kind of in their own little lane, like not outcasts, but because they're both would be considered like adopted, and just their whole origins are mysterious and everything. They have just bonded in that way, and it was good to see it also play out in the movie a lot. So that's great. Yeah, man, I left really loving the character and just really excited to see where her story goes from here. So yeah, I had no negatives for me on that part. That's probably going to be how it's going to go. Like really no negatives almost across the board, but yeah, man.
You raised an interesting point too, because when I did first start watching the movie, it was still, I guess, a bit jarring hearing Sigourney voicing her, but that went away real quickly for me as well.
Yeah, and because I know me and you had talked about before we went into the movie that we had reservations on that part, but yeah, I just a few minutes in, I believe eventually, like 5-10 minutes in, I was completely on board, and it just won me over. So yeah, I'm excited to see where the story goes for that character. But let's get to the actual, you know, biological children of Jake and Neytiri, and obviously starting with the firstborn son, Netayam. What did you think about Netayam and his story arc in this movie, and just everything, man? You can say spoilers and everything. So, what did you think?
So I didn't have a lot of feelings towards him, good or bad, going in. He wasn't featured a whole lot in any of the trailers. For a while, it felt like we really didn't see him ever. But, after reading The High Ground and then watching the movie, I really started growing more attached to him. Like, I really respected him. Like, he tried to do the right thing. He reminded me a lot of Jake. Like, oh yeah, I think he was maybe going to become my favorite child. And then, well, we see what happens. He ended up dying. And that really
Yeah,
set off the events at the end of the movie. But man, I was disappointed to see him die. Now, I can't say that surprised me because we knew that they were going to be facing great loss in this film, so kind of hinted at someone would die. And I didn't think they'd kill off Took. I mean, she's a little girl. We know Loak, or at least strongly suspected Loak has a big part in the future films. And so it kind of just made sense that he would be the one to go. So I can't say I was super surprised that he died. I mean, we've kind of joked about that for a long time on this channel. But man, I grew attached to him. I really enjoyed seeing him in the film. He was a good big brother. So I was sad to see him go. But I really liked the character.
yeah, same here. But it was kind of like I went in with that same thought. If somebody in the Sully family was going to die, I think he was pretty much my one and only option. Um, but beforehand, I didn't really think we were going to suffer the loss of an immediate Sully family member. I thought maybe like a big secondary character or something on that, where it's still a loss that is felt. But no, like he really meant it when he said, just from this first sequel, we're really going to start experiencing this loss, and we can see right off the bat with the end of this movie why Jake refers to this, the time that we're going to explore in these sequels as the time of great sorrow. Takes me back to that panel from the High Ground Volume 1 where he's like, in order for you to know, the time of great, to know what we lost, I had to show you what we had. And it was a panel of the family, writing Ikrans together at night. And yeah, basically they weren't kidding, man. Not that whole, like, the whole family's not going to make it to the end of these sequels, perhaps. So, and it takes me back to another thing where he explained that a big inspiration for these was also the Godfather saga, and that's very similar too, because if you remember, if you've seen it, in that movie, Don Corleone loses as well his firstborn son, which was basically the son you thought was going to take over the family business. and it was the so same thing. So I already see seeds of like inspiration that he has mentioned to us in over the years. I saw that right there, like, oh man, that is kind of a similar, and we are going to see this generational story play out just like in the Godfather saga. It's a story of generations of this family. So that's going to be exciting. Yeah, man, I really cared for him by the end of the movie, even though going in I thought he would bite the dust. I didn't want him to by the time that the events played out. Like, he won me over throughout the movie. Like you said, not very many scenes, but they were impactful. He was a great older brother. He was a great, almost like a younger Jake. It was, yeah, man, he won me over, and it was really sad to see him go. So it did hit me. I will admit, it did hit me, and I was possibly tearing up a little bit during his death. But yeah, it was sad to see him go. But I loved it. Was beautiful, man. I had made a video before I went to see the movie a few days before, and I theorized this very thing on the channel that he would be the one to die, and that scene, where we see Jake and Neytiri underwater, about to connect to that tree underwater. I was like, in my video I theorized that would be them connecting and seeing him, and a part of me didn't really think that was gonna happen, but then it did, man, and I thought that was beautiful. It got me a second time, man. It was a really emotional scene, but it was beautiful. So I loved his short little character arc that we did get. I thought he was a great character, man. Sad to see him go.
Yeah, and one thing I've got to touch on was his looks. Like looking at him, man, I could just see his actor, which is cool. But I could also see Jake and I could see Neytiri in his face, but like more,
Yeah.
maybe more leaning towards Neytiri. And I feel like Loak looks a bit more like Jake, but I don't know. I thought he had a really cool look. I'd hate to see him go, but he was a good character, man.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed we didn't get him for too much, but he did seem like he was pretty badass, man. He was a good character. So hopefully in the future with maybe other material, maybe we can get other comics filling in, sorry, the years in between. Maybe we'll get, to experience his story a little bit more in the past, but with what we got, I'm sad for their loss, but I also think it's gonna affect the story. It was important as well, and basically just raise the stakes going forward. Like I mentioned this to a family member that hadn't seen it yet, but the only thing I said was like, pretty much with this franchise right now, like, of all the big franchises that are out there, I'm more invested into what's gonna happen next. It has me like, like your season just ended and you already can't wait for the next season. Like, this more than any other big franchise out there right now, I can't wait to see what keeps happening in this ongoing story more than anything else. So, and how is this gonna affect Loak? I mean, we'll touch on this on he's the upcoming character, but man, like, how is the him probably feeling guilty going forward? Like, how is this gonna affect his story going forward? So it's not gonna be something we leave behind. I feel we're gonna keep touching on it moving forward. But that brings us to Loak, man. uh you mentioned he was probably your favorite character leaving the movie. So what did you think of Loak's story in this movie?
I liked it, and it seemed to kind of mirror Jake. Like I kind of feel like Locke is kind of the worst parts of Jake, whereas Natam was like the best parts of Jake. Loak kind of has all of his bad traits, but I love his traits. He's fearless. He's not afraid to stand up to anybody. I mean, we saw him standing up to Tonowari about Payakan. And so I just love that he's not afraid. He's not really afraid of anything. And I like seeing that relationship that we knew was going to happen between him and Tsireya and just kind of grow. Like, you can definitely tell the thoughts and what they put out there is going to happen. I mean, they're going to be the next Jake and Neytiri. I'd say eventually we're going to be following them, maybe more than we follow Jake and Neytiri in future films. And so they were setting that up nicely. I thought they had a cool relationship, some really good moments. I love the bond that he formed with Payakan and just how that all played out. So he's probably the character I'm most interested to see where his story goes in the future.
Yeah, I love the way you put that. That it was a great way to look at it. The Netayam was basically the best parts of Jake and the best traits, and then Loak is all the worst traits, the impulsiveness, the all that stuff. But like you said, they're some of our favorite aspects of Jake. So I think that's why we still gravitated towards Loak at the end. Um, really feeling, like he needs to prove himself, just kind of like Jake did in the first movie. To be honest, he feels like basically like that, like how his father felt in the first, where he's looked at as an outcast, as an alien, for all that. So it was mirroring it, very similar, but in its own right. I loved his own character, and like you said, just going forward, his is going to be, man. So I feel so many of these subplots are just going to be. I just can't wait to see them be fleshed out, and what the next chapter is in all of their stories. So yeah, of course, he's one where I can't wait to see it. Because like we said, we think he's gonna be, him and Tsireya will be the next big important characters. Um, we saw some of the titles, which now they have confirmed they're not gonna keep those working titles. But the working title for number 4, Avatar 4, was the Tulkun writer. And obviously, who did we see in this movie have like the best bond with the Tulkun? That's Loak. So I assume this one entail in the future maybe him fully writing them. Because really, I have to ask you. I don't think I was left with the impression that um, any of the Metkayina really ride their Tulkun. I think I just got the impression they kind of swim along. They just kind of like, they're just bonded more in like a brotherly sister way, like a spirit brother sister, like they say. Um, so I think it would be special if he just forms like the greatest connection with the Tulkun that maybe they haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think they look at him more like brothers and sisters versus like, man riding beast or, a Na'vi riding a Ikran. I think they see each other as equals, so that would be probably unprecedented, I would imagine.
Yeah. So, and that's that whole story right there, the boy and his dog story. Um, when both of them are seen in that negative light, the outcast, because even Payakan is considered an outcast for his things that happened in his past, because he can't kill. And but I feel that this is going to be tested. The Tulkun way, I feel, is going to be tested going forward. So we'll see how long that stays. You know, because really in this movie it was only Payakan that I think helped in the final battle. So we'll have to see if that maintains throughout the sequels, which I doubt. But now going into, because like we said, Tiri really didn't have much of a role in this movie. So, but I think the next the final major arc was both in tandem the Quaritch and Spider. And I'll start this one. Like I loved Recom Quaritch more than I ever thought I would, to be honest with you. Like I was like grinning ear to ear. Honestly, like it was fascinating hearing basically a Quaritch lines and dialogue, but coming out of basically like an avatar. It was just incredible knowing that now his character is like this. Like it's more dangerous, more agile. It was, he seems super ferocious, man. He seems like really dangerous. But then that right off the bat, the bond now, or not bond, but the story that's playing out between him and Spider. This, him not knowing if he cares about him or not, because at the end of the day, he says, I'm not the Quaritch from the first movie. I have some of his memories, but that's not me. I love to see that throughout the movie. At some points, it's like he acted like he could care less, but then you saw that by the end, he does end up starting to care for this boy that he could see has his son in the future. And I think this has a lot of big implications. I believe we're starting to see the hints of him, eventually, I wouldn't say turning on the RDA, but just changing from just being what he was in this movie. So that's going to be fascinating to see, especially with what happened at the end. Him realizing literally Spider saved his life. If it wasn't for Spider, even in his new form, he would have been dead again. So the Spider, I think out of all the kids was maybe like he was very important when it came to Quaritch, but I think he was maybe my least favorite in terms of like being super interested in where the story's going. I am interested, but I think other ones just kind of supersede him at the moment, like Kiri, Loak, those two. So, but yeah, man, just what did you kind of think overall between Quaritch and Spider?
For Quaritch, I felt the same way. Like, I think Stephen Lang is a great actor, and so that alone is a reason I always kind of liked Quaritch, not the character. He's just Stephen Lang makes him such a great bad guy. So to see him be in an avatar body and now be like a threat, like one on one with Jake, I loved it. And I love seeing kind of, even now that he's not human, some of the human qualities coming out in Quaritch. Like, he was generally shocked watching that footage of the death and seeing his, Colonel Quaritch's amp suit and looking down at that little tiny skull. And then the bond that he ended up showing that and feelings that he has for Spider. So it was nice actually, now that he's not even human, seeing some human qualities coming out of him. And he's such a threat now. Like, watching him and Jake at the very end of the movie fighting one-on-one with just knives, like, I was just loving that. Yeah, I'm going to continue to cheer against the character, but I really enjoy him. He made for a really, really good bad guy, and I can't wait to see where his arc takes him. Because like Jerry was saying, I mean, there's definitely some seeds of doubt that this guy's just straight up bad through and through now. Like, I could see him changing, especially having a son, even though technically it's not even his son, but he definitely has feelings for Spider. So as far as Spider, really of all the core characters, he would be my least favorite. He has a lot of heart. I mean, I'll give him that, but I could do without him. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, I was cheering for Neytiri, like, kill him, like, yeah, just do it. I want to see it. Like, that would shock everybody. I didn't actually want to see that happen, but can you imagine if she actually did it? If she actually plunged her knife into him, that would have been crazy. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm not against the character at all or anything like that, but I like him better when he's not with the Sully family, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think that's where he was strongest, was where it was more so it gave us a very interesting twist and, conundrum for Quaritch. And that's where I felt he worked the best, was like being there and then constantly being around Quaritch, to that way Quaritch constantly like second guessed himself, or ended up going quote unquote like kind of soft on him, and you would see, like you said, like human traits, that it's like you said, it's funny that now more humanity is coming out when he's now like this recom avatar, instead of when he was the human Quaritch that we knew from the first movie. So that's going to be very interesting. And yeah, man. Let's see here. And so, what are any closing thoughts, hopes for the sequels? And then, of course, we now kind of want to also open it up to you guys, and give us your own thoughts, and let's kind of discuss it. Anything that we, or any aspect you want to comment on, or give us your own kind of like mini review. But while we wait for some of those to come in, what are some of your closing thoughts or kind of hopes for the sequels, Drew? Just kind of like, right off of seeing the movie.
Closing thoughts. Again, I just got to go back to Neytiri, the way she was after Netiem was killed. Like, she just went like full Rambo. Like, to me, that was just awesome. I love watching her kill all those humans, just, you know, yanking the arrow out of their dead body and using it again. Like, she was just going nuts. I love seeing that. It was sad that the reason she was in such a rage, but I like seeing how like powerful one not V can be when they just go like full beast mode. So that was like my favorite part of the whole movie. Um, I loved Avatar 2. Like, it didn't let me down at all. I had high hopes and it met all of them and it exceeded them. And so I'm super excited for Avatar 3. I mean, it's only 2 years away, which as an Avatar fan, that's nothing. And I mean,
Yeah.
we know what the graphics are going to look like. The 3D is going to be good. Like, I have high hopes for the story because I felt like this was just kind of a kicking off point. Avatar 2, a little bit of a reboot of the franchise, so to speak. I mean, we had Avatar 1 and there was such a long gap. They now have established what the remaining movies will be. Like, this is a good starting point. And I love that they went the route of planning the entire thing out beforehand. So we're going to get a nice, cohesive story from movie to movie. So I'm just excited to see where they take us. Like, I'm trying to not get too ahead of myself and come up with all these scenarios of what's going to happen because I don't want to be disappointed. I want to just enjoy the story and go wherever it takes us. So I'm really excited about the future of the franchise.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's pretty much the final thoughts that I have with it. Is it left me completely satisfied. It over delivered for me, but this was just the first of these four sequels, and basically, we can only expect it to get bigger and better from here, and that's just insane to even think about. This was already, hands down the best like theater experience I've had, aside from obviously the, seeing it for the first time with the first Avatar, like being that blown away by that. But even already knowing that and having that previous experience, this one just really did like just raise it to another level. So I hope across the board, lightning strikes twice, and it makes the money that it needs to in order for us to get the guaranteed 4 and 5, to get the green light on those. Because like you said, it leaves me so hopeful for the future of the franchise. And it's just crazy to think now we finally have a second full movie that we can think about, draw upon, when for 13 years it was just one movie. Now it's really a franchise now. Now we got at least two movies. And like you said, we every 2 years from here on out, hopefully, barring any potential delays on a four and five, which could happen. Um, but other than that, it's just going to be a very exciting time. It's the uh, the most excited I am for any big, movie franchise at the moment. So I'm just fully invested, fully on board. It really made me care for so many of the new characters more than I thought I possibly would, and for so many of them too. Like it's not just one or two, so that really means it did a really good job across the board. Even this new clan, which at the end of the day we didn't really see too much of, Tonowari, Ronal, them. So it'll even be fascinating to get to just see even more of that going forward. So yeah, just in general, I'm super excited for this franchise. I'm gonna pretty much every weekend look at the box office and hope that we get to those magic numbers that gives us the guaranteed green light, just to finally be able to breathe and know that we're 100% getting at least the full 5 movie. um yeah, man, so excited for the future. uh that's pretty much where it leaves. But yeah, like now, give us all your thoughts here in the comments, and let's kind of go through some of these. Let's see here. Afton Child says, I can't wait to see more Quaritch and his bond with Spider and see him turn good and to sacrifice, save his son like Darth Vader. He's literally like Darth Vader. Yeah, I would assume, or I would say there are shades of Darth Vader in there, but at the same time, I kind of feel it's like it's his own unique thing, and I kind of love that. Uh, Initially hearing that he could be the father, or at least the human Quaritch was the father of Spider, it did jump like Darth Vader. But honestly, watching it, I didn't really get. I love that it didn't really give me those vibes. Like, it wasn't screaming that to me. I'm excited in its own way to see like what they have in store for us when it comes to those two characters and how this can change him, and in what ways will it change him. So what do you think there about the Darth Vader reference here, Drew?
Yeah, I could see Quaritch also surprising us. Like, yeah, in one hand, I could see him, eventually maybe becoming even an ally to the Sully family. But on the other hand, I could see him turning his back on Spider even going forward and just truly embracing the old Quaritch ways of just being an a-hole all the time and not caring about anybody other than himself. Maybe that's the lesson he's going to learn from this, from what happened in Avatar 2. I don't know. I could see him going either way still. I could see him ended up good, and I could see him turning more like he used to be. So I think he's going to go one way or the other, though. I don't think he's going to stay kind of torn for very long.
Yeah. And I don't know. What do you think of this question here? Like, I have seen it referenced somewhere else, and then King Cobra 31 did kind of bring it up here in the chat. Do Spider and Kiri like each other, or what? I don't know if I got those vibes. I mean, I don't know. I guess if they ever chose to go that route, because at the end of the day, they didn't. The movie itself didn't really make it seem like Spider was part of the family. So I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility. It's not like, it could be like, oh, you were brother and sister the whole time. This is weird. I think the movie itself, more than the promotional material and stuff, that kind of wanted you to think he was their other like adopted son, which really the movie didn't really, at least to me, it didn't really paint it that way. It just kind of seemed like, he really liked being around the Sully family, because we know from the high ground that he actually does have like a human adopted family. Um, I don't know. What do you think about that towards the end? Do you think like that could be another budding romance there, or is that kind of like just being very brother and sisterly?
Well, I think it goes back to a point that you made earlier. And for one, I'll start off with saying like this. Yeah, I think the Sully see Spider more as like a friend of their kids. I mean, Neytiri, I don't
Yeah.
think cares about him at all. But I think Jake, at least, hey, I care about this kid. I mean, he's friends with my kids. He hangs out with us. He comes and eats with us. He's around a lot. I don't think he looks at him like a son either. But I think they care. I think Jake has a genuine care for Spider, but not full on family care. And then you've
Yeah.
got Kiri, who is an outcast. I mean, she's different than everybody. She's an adopted daughter. And then you've got this kid that runs around, and he doesn't really fit in anywhere either. So I just think it's natural that those two would like each other. And I didn't get anything from watching the movie that it would be romantic at all. I think they just both are kind of in a similar place, even though they're totally different characters.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't think it overtly stated that. I guess my only thing, kind of like you're saying, like I wouldn't really be surprised, or it wouldn't be something that I'd be like taken aback by, because like you said, the movie itself, regardless of what promotional material was telling us or whatever, but watching the movie itself, like you said, it kind of more painted it like he's just a really good friend of the family, of the kids. Jake, is fond of him just because of that. Like he really gets along with his kids. Like he kind of mentioned, I think he's kind of more like a stray cat. So, but yeah, and I thinking back at it, I think the only scene that kind of like if for a split second made me be like, huh, like raise my eyebrow, was like they're in the lab. I think it's early on in the movie. They're in the lab, and I think he like touches her tail or in a weird way when they're just like kind of like. I mean, I'm sure it was probably just playful, but he kind of does like talk on that. Like I don't know if that was that's supposed to represent like smacking somebody in the butt or something. I don't know, but did you notice that, or am I like imagining this scene?
I didn't, but I mean, it very well could have happened. There's a lot to take in. And I could honestly see him having more feelings romantically towards her than Kiri towards Spider, just because I think Kiri's got a lot going on and a lot to think about, and Spider's a young boy and wants to be and not be so freaking bad. So I could definitely see maybe those feelings coming more from him than her.
I mean, I think it would be very interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to exploring it, because if you really think about it, she's gonna have. I mean, we're theorizing she's gonna have the biggest connection to Pandora itself. I mean, I'm really thinking she's gonna end up being the Immaculate Conception thing, and she'll be. I don't know in what capacity or what it could mean. Especially, we know like the leaked title of the last film was The Quest for Awa, but from now until then, we don't know what that could mean. But she'll basically represent the biggest connection to Pandora itself, whereas he kind of has his origins are the biggest connection to like Earth. So he's like, but he loves Pandora, and I could just see it being, and then if the Quaritch, mix in the Quaritch into that, and I could see it being an interesting thing to explore. Maybe as they grow older, it could be something that they form, that starts to spark up, even if it's not there right now, because we do know that we're gonna get future. I mean, we're gonna get more time jumps. So in this one, we already saw like a year from when the RDA came back to the events proper of the movie starting. It's a year time jump there. We know about one in Avatar 4, like 6 years, and who knows how many more. Maybe there's further ones in 4 or 5. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Let's see here. We also get this movie opens up the world of Pandora so much more than could have have imagined makes you wonder how much more in Avatar 3. Uh, yeah, exactly, man. I feel I that's probably my favorite one of my favorite aspects of these sequels is that they've chosen to, with each sequel, um, kind of open up the planet even more, like, make it seem like a fully fledged kind of like they've compared it to Earth, where we can spend our whole lives traveling around Earth and still not see all of its wonders. So I love that we're gonna not stay in one static place in one static spot, and we're gonna keep exploring new biomes, new regions. Because at the end of the day, I think it's gonna take the not just like at the end of the first movie gathering up a few clans that are maybe nearby, but I think it will take a global like Pandora effort, like clans that you've never even associated with from polar regions, just all these different regions. It would probably take them together to maybe actually go to war for real with the RDA in a future movie. So yeah, it's gonna be fascinating. I mean, we see just with this water, all the new creatures we've already met in this movie, how beautiful the underwater was. You excited to explore even more regions in these further sequels, Drew?
I am, but before I touch on that, I wanted to clear up one thing I saw in the chat. So Spider is 16 and Kiri is 14, just so everybody knows. Um, yes, I am excited to explore more regions. It really feels like the Metkayina and the water is going to be, a big theme going forward, but we're still going to branch out from that. So it's going to be interesting seeing what else is out there and how each, maybe not each tribe, but how each type of Navi in the other regions is different than the water ones, different than the forest ones. It's going to be cool to see what they've come up with to show how they've adapted to live in those climates. So I think that's my most excited part about that.
Exactly, and actually, from in case anybody doesn't know, in the interview with the French website, James Cameron kind of already hinted to us what the next region will be, and he called this group of Navi, he labeled them as the People of Ashes or the Ash People, and he said the element we will explore in 3 will be fire. So we explored water in the way of water, and that the next one will be fire. So with ash and fire, I theorized in a recent video I put up that it could be like from a volcanic region, and that would be interesting. And then like that, just like how we saw with the Metkayina, how their physiology was completely different and adapted for the water. I wonder how much how each region will change the Navi in ways to adapt to those climates and to those regions. So that would be fascinating. But I mean, I guess we kind of got a hint about what's to come. And most important, the best part was that he said it would be a villainous Navi clan, not a good, Navi clan. That in the first 2 movies he gave us a lot of bad human examples and very good Navi examples, but that for 3 he kind of wanted to switch it, and so basically 3 will introduce the first at least villainous Navi clan to the story. As I mean, I'm sure they've already been out there, just some that maybe don't like working well with others. But does that intrigue you at all? Exploring fire, a villainous Navi clan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm excited to go see the Mustafar clan.
Oh my
Should be a
god!
good time. No, that's interesting. I don't know what I think. Like, I'm not gonna bash it because I'll wait till I see it. My first thought of like a clan that lives in a fire region sounds kind of off-putting compared to like water and how pretty water can be versus a burning area. But I'm not going to bash it until I see it because I'm sure the vision that they have for it is much different than the first thoughts that come to my mind. So
that we have, yeah.
yeah, like how beautiful water can be and underwater, and the Metkayina village and everything versus ash and volcanoes. So that's interesting, but I think an evil or multiple evil Na'vi clans is a good idea. That way, we're not just constantly fighting anything. Nothing but the RDA and Quaritch. Like that would get old. We need to have
Yeah,
other threats. So, yeah, bring it on. I say.
exactly. Because I think we touched about on that before. After both of us got out of the movie, it was like it was great for the first movie. It worked in this movie, but knowing there's three more, and I'm sure they'd find a way to like we'll watch it and be like, okay, that made sense. But right off the bat, like initially in our heads, we're kind of like, if it's the same thing just every movie for three more, would it get tiresome? Would it lose kind of like a little bit of its luster? So yeah, just introducing this new little twist, like maybe it's even a clan on clan for Avatar 3 instead of still the full RDA. Maybe they're still building up because they're still in construction of Bridgehead City, but maybe for some reason it's clan on clan. It's too early to theorize anything, but like you also said, I'm sure they've already designed and fully have come up with how each different region will be interesting and probably beautiful, or at least awe-inspiring, because maybe not necessarily like beautiful and good, but it could, something like that could still be awe-inspiring in its own way. And like you said, they know better than we do, so I'm sure they've figured out how to make that be pretty awesome in its own right. But yeah, man, super excited. At least we only have to wait 2 years, hopefully. So uh, it'll be interesting to go into. I'm super excited for it. I can't wait. But yeah, let's
Well, and
see.
like what we've talked about before with Frontiers of Pandora coming out sometime next year, I mean, that right there will be, to me, almost as big as having another movie. Like, that's going to be super exciting, and we're going to hopefully be able to play some way together with other people. Hopefully, there's some kind of co op. So, I mean, I think that's really going to help me personally, tide me over until the next movie.
Yeah, for sure. And in case anybody didn't hear, they Jon Landau did confirm that every other way they branch out, whether it's a video game or the comics, like they have been, even something like the Taruk the First Flight, like the Cirque du Soleil show, everything is planned to be canon, except something, for example, like Frontiers of Pandora. It's just going to take place in a region that the movies are not going to interfere with or take place in. So these games will still be canon, and Frontiers of Pandora, they confirmed, will take place in between that time jump. So it'll take place like after the RDA has arrived. So you see that in the beginning of The Way of Water, and then there's a 1 year time jump. So Frontiers of Pandora is going to take place throughout that 1 year. So you're going to see just on the western frontier how those Navi clans had to deal with the return of the RDA. And that's going to be kind of fascinating too, because like you said, it'll be almost like its own film, except this time you're not following specifically the Sully family, but you're still following the other Navi clans and their peril throughout Pandora as the RDA has returned. So that'll still be really interesting, and you'll explore new other areas of Pandora as well. So they're still opening it up in a way. So that I can't wait. They did say there's still no estimated release, that it's going to be either between April 1st, 2023 to March 2024, so that it can out any time within that window. Is the current time frame. I hope it's sometime this upcoming year in 2023 and not all the way until 2024, but I guess time will tell. At the end of the day, we want the most polished version of the game, so if they gotta, let it cook a little longer, then they gotta let it cook.
Yeah, and as much as I want it now and as close to April 1st as possible, it probably wouldn't be a horrible thing if it did come out in a year, and then we'd be a year away from the next movie. It'd build up a lot of hype around, holiday season 2023. So we'll see what happens, man. I do like that thought too of okay, they're not going to intersect. They're all taking place in the same general time frame, but this is over here. The movies are over there. I think that's good because then they have freedom to grow and do what they need to do versus being constrained to certain things that's going on in the movie world.
Exactly. Like we saw the original game. Honestly, as fun as it was, because I'll still admit to this day, like I had a blast playing that first Avatar game when the movie. I know there's different versions of it. Every different like system kind of had their own developer. They all were just named the same thing, Avatar the game, but specifically the Xbox 360 slash PS3 version by Ubisoft. I had a blast with that game, but that was right there. You already see, the old pitfalls, which was, it took place before the movie, but you already know that watching the movie, these events didn't take place because it's just they're too. Your character in
Yeah,
there, he
like
even rides a Taruk.
yeah.
It's just too much of it. It's just too crazy to have taken place, but so with this, like you said, now we can truly be excited for it because it's like it's going to be this whole other region that we'll even want to explore because uh the movies haven't touched it, and it's still canon. It's taking place in the same time frame, like you said, more or less, but it's just in a different area that's not going to affect anything. So it's not like we'll watch the next movie and be like, oh no, Frontiers of Pandora is not canon because this one they didn't really address this or this. So it's good to know that they are thinking about that in that way, where all these other projects are going to be canon, but they're just going to be very careful about how and what is actually made. So I'm really excited about it. Even the mobile game they said is going to be canon as well. The upcoming Avatar Reckoning. So, and that one is confirmed to have multiplayer. So we'll at least have that one to play with together. So
Man, I've been burned by mobile Avatar games so many times that like I don't
oh
even
yeah,
believe them when they say a mobile game's coming.
right.
Man, I've
Uh,
seen so many of those supposedly be on their way and just never make it.
yeah, hopefully, because I didn't get to play Pandora Rising, but now because of these statements, it really makes sense as to why that one had to get shut down because it it was too. It played more like a standard game. It was like here
Yeah.
you can collect these commanders, but they're all throughout history. Like some of them they just
Right.
created these stories of these Navi commanders from throughout Pandoran lore and history, and so it wasn't a game that you could ever say was canon in any way. So, um, but it had some great art and some great little like lore backstories for those certain ones that they created. So that was still really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I never got to play that game, but the art and like you said, the backstories, man, they live on. So I was glad that game existed. I was sad that I never got to play it, but it, again, as you said, it makes sense why it didn't end up happening.
Exactly. And oh, and for anybody who hasn't, today was also the release of a lot of books. We had obviously we knew about the sticker book, but we also get a really big art book for the Way of Water. So if you and trust me, it's filled with stunning. I'll probably put a a video, kind of like a flip through video of it up on the channel maybe soon. And also the visual dictionary, which is going to be filled with so much information. So if you're somebody like me and Drew, because we're like going nuts over this book right now. If you're somebody who really wants to learn even more about the lore and everything, like highly recommend picking up the visual dictionary. If you've ever seen them before, you'll kind of get like they go into every little thing that they're wearing, every weapon, every just more information than you like think you would could ever want or need, but it's there and it's amazing. So expect so many videos from both Drew and I on our separate channels, kind of going through these books and giving you guys like lore videos, and Drew's been doing a lot of shorts with what he calls Navi knowledge. So, look out for those, and I'll bring out a whole bunch of lore. I want to go through all the lore of Avatar 1 and 2, so that's a big goal of mine. So yeah, if anybody, if you haven't heard of the books, highly recommend you guys pick them up. Yeah, that's pretty much everything we have now. I mean, we got the movie, we got these books, and now we're just kind of waiting, right, Drew, to see what the next big announcement that we have on the horizon, whether it's a new comic series or maybe even a novel, but hopefully the game, something like that. So
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting because I mean something else is going to be coming. They have a plan for this franchise, and last I heard it was a 20-year plan. So their intentions aren't to just let it die off for 2 years in between Avatar 2 and Avatar 3. I do think we're going to get some content. What that's going to be, I have no idea. But like Jerry said, possibly a novel. I'd say comics for sure at some point. So I can't wait to see what else is on the horizon for this coming year. And again, just touching on the visual dictionary, I love it. You learn stuff like just kind of nerdy facts, like it tells how tall Jake is, how tall Neytiri is. That's how I knew how old Kiri was versus Spider. Just a bunch of little things like that. That if you like to get into the nitty gritty details of the franchise, it's just chock full of it.
yeah, like even crazy meticulous things like showing you what the Metkayina eat, and and you get images of these these plates of food, and what their huts are made of and what their huts are called, and it's just everything, like every little thing, every piece of equipment, environment. It's just amazing, amazing lore. So for Drew and I, we're suckers for that. We love the world building in this franchise, in that, and just like that, appreciating all the thought that goes into it, because a lot of this you're never gonna see in the movies explore. Like you'll see them in the background, or obviously you see what they're wearing, things like that, but you'll never learn any of the stories behind it. So it's just fascinating to get a book like this that really will give you so much more appreciation for all the work they put in, and give you a new perspective. So when you watch the movie, you can watch it now like, oh, I know what that's that one particular bead in his song chord. I know what that means. I know what the hilt of their dagger is made out of or whatever. So it's just really interesting stuff. So yeah. Just a couple final ones here. They say they'd hope the Ubisoft game Frontiers of Pandora doesn't turn into a hyper microtransaction RPG game. I think all of us, dread that will happen, because I know Ubisoft is notorious for that with stuff like Assassin's Creed and all that. I hope if they ever do that, it's kind of what they've done in at least in Assassin's Creed, because I've played that one, and just keep it like cosmetic. Because that'd be cool if people want to, if they have money to burn and they'd like to buy some cool costumes or whatever, that would be fine, as long as it's nothing like pay to win, like no like no power ups or anything in the game that would help you, you know anything like that. Cosmetic stuff, I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, it's a way for them to, the game to be successful and for them to keep supporting it. So in a way, these live service games, that's how they are continuously supported, because they've announced it's going to be a live service game, and they're going to support it for, they said, multiple years. So we also can't expect to only just buy it once and expect them to support the game for years, but all we ever want to do is give the initial $60. I mean, I'm not saying any of us have to. I'm just saying just let them throw in something like cosmetics, because that way people that do like that stuff, they support it and kind of fund, give them the money to keep it just feeds itself. Do you have any thoughts on that, Drew?
Yeah, and so if you have to buy something like, I don't know, a seasonal pack or add-ons because they've created new areas, I'm fine with that, because you don't have to do that. Like if you buy the base game and you don't want to buy the new area expansion pack that's coming out the next year, you don't have to. You'll still have that game. You'll still have access to everything you paid for. But I like that option of not having to buy an entire new game and start all the way over, but expanding what you already have. So I actually
Yeah.
love stuff like that. But again, yeah, I don't like the pay to play or anything like that. And I don't really anticipate that, because I think first and foremost, this is going to be a single player game. Hopefully there will be some multiplayer aspects, but I don't think this is going to be like Call of Duty. You got your squad and go kill some other guys. So
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, we'll start wrapping it up here. Thank you for all of you guys for tuning into the, our review of the movie itself and just kind of hanging out with us for a little bit. Yeah, and just closing here, just for the franchise as a whole, like we said, whether it's video games, upcoming comics, even these, supplementary books that we just got that came out today as well. We haven't had this in 13 years, and this excitement of knowing that a lot is on the horizon. For a lot of years, we didn't really know if that was 100% the case. So I feel this is a very exciting time for Avatar fans, and so many new ones are also going to join in. But yeah, I'm just really excited. What are your closing thoughts to our stream here, Drew?
yeah, I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I know we didn't have near as many tonight because, well, you don't want to spoil you don't want to spoil the movie listening to our review. So I don't blame anybody for not hopping in. Hopefully everybody will catch up with us later. And thank you to those who are in the chat tonight. I hope you guys love the movie, man. It was quite the experience for both me and Jerry, and so I hope fans are really enjoying it like we are. And so far, I really think they are. Everything I'm hearing is positive, and I just hope everybody has a good night.
Yeah, so thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next stream. We don't know what the topic will be, but we'll fill you guys in like always. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the movie and are going to enjoy it multiple times. So enjoy it. We finally made it after months of anticipation and obviously years of anticipation. But yeah, thank you for following us so far on this journey. But this is just the beginning. We have so many more things to be excited about in the future. So yeah, we'll continue on this journey. It's not over for us. So thank you for all of you that are here, and have a great night or a great day from wherever you're at. So yeah, thank you.
Later, everybody.